Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we have a lot to talk about today. And we've got some of the best and the brightest that we've brought from around the world, literally from all different corners around the world today, to talk to us about what's happening around the workplace when it comes to work and remote tech, whether that be in the office, out of the office, or the new office, wherever it may be. Your RV that you're driving around the backcountry, whether that be your living room, your kitchen, your closet, or you're back in the office traditionally. Nonetheless, we're here to talk about the technologies that are powering the future of work, the future of the workplace, and the future of us as employees, and those that may employ others as well. So a lot to talk about. This is a huge, hot subject right now. And even more importantly, as we're in that sprint towards the end of the year, we've talked about this Q3, rounding that out towards the end of the year, that big shot before the end of the year. This is the time when people are fundraising and raising capital. It doesn't matter if you're on the investor side, as we'll hear from today, or if you're on the entrepreneur side. It's an important time of the year. It's even more important now with technology in the workplace. Things have changed. We're looking at that. It's been accelerated. It was already on that track. But now, how are these technologies working? How are they not working? That's a lot of what we're going to unpack today. But first and foremost, thank you so much for tuning in today, audience. If you like what you hear today, make sure you click subscribe. And if you'd like to be on a show like today as an investor, do reach out. We'd love to have you and find the right episode for you to talk about technology industries and regions around the world and how you see them, along with opening up your mind and how you think to the audience abroad. And entrepreneurs, this is not just a stage for investors. Even though it may look like it, we have an opportunity for you as well. There's a virtual stage here for you to get up on and pitch each and every one of us. You've got a targeted group of investors available to you, ready to hear your pitch along with our entire live audience. Again, this is that sprint to the end of the year, great opportunity to take advantage of. And also a big thank you to Maria and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible every single day on every device, screen around the world. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and get started introducing all of our guests. And first and foremost, Brett, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. Little intro, little background, please.
Sure. Yeah, good to see you. Thanks for having me back. Brett Noyce, founder and director of Unventures. We're an early stage syndicate. So yeah, we work with about 500 VCs throughout the US, syndicating deals on a bi-weekly basis. Our overall thesis of this is expanded from being primarily fintech focused to being open to, in about the last months, we really, before actually COVID happened, we started to think that this whole space of future of work was really interesting. SMB automation, personal finance, and data and regulatory compliance are the primary areas that we're focused on these days.
Wonderful, and welcome back to the show. I know we've got a lot to talk about. You've got a lot of investors you work with, so your opinion and thoughts go very, very far. And so we're going to talk a lot about your activities there. Alex, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure, my friend. It's always great to see you joining us from the Northeast. Tell us how it is. Tell us a little background. Give us a little intro.
All right. Well, Brett, after being first and foremost, I guess I'll be second and second most here. So my name's Alex. I run something called Bicameral Ventures, which is a venture platform out of Toronto, focused on frontier technology, so blockchain, AI, IoT, and most importantly, where those technologies converge with each other. So where AI is running a blockchain network, where we're using blockchain to power IoT transfers and value transfers in technology. We spend a ton of time in the data space and the self-sovereignty space, and something that I'm excited to talk about today, personalized AI and personal cognitive computing, which I think is going to be a really critical part of how we maintain human integrity as we move towards this crazy virtualized world that we're about to get into. So we run a venture platform. We also run several direct solutions. We're raising for a second fund right now, and doing all sorts of interesting stuff in a very, very interesting world. So looking forward to this topic.
A lot to talk about already with two investors. And third, Sergey, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you. A little intro, a little background.
Hi, Kyle. Yeah, I'm managing partner from Forces Capital Partners. We've been founded we are quite recently, beginning of this year. So we are a boutique venture investment and consulting company. So we have offices in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Bangkok with direct access to individuals with total net worth of more than $1 billion. So, and we were currently doing our first fund, Luxembourg-based fund, 45 million euros. So we are focused on US, European, and partly Asia Pacific markets with targets for IT investments, all pure digital with focus on ed tech, game tech, work tech, remote tech as well, and health tech without going anything deeply that requires like 5 years of research. So that's it in a nutshell. And basically, currently we are doing the supervision. We have several companies now portfolio that we helped to raise money, and we trying to supervise them and help them to raise the funds at the next stage.
Wonderful. And real quick, with this new fund that you're putting together,
Yeah.
what stage do you? It's just because so
Yeah,
our audience
we're
knows
currently
what stage
yeah.
do you invest in?
We're currently we're investing at pre-seed up to Series A, but mostly we focus to pre-seed and seed. We'll also do follow-up investments. Yeah, our interests like ends at a Series A because we have a lot of connections among the VCs that can further lead up from Series A to Series B and onwards.
That's great. Wonderful. Well, welcome to the show, audience.
Thank you.
You've got a new investor and new fund to pay attention to, so get ready. Thilo, it's been a minute. You're looking sharp. I'm going to throw you in the fourth category. If you can, a little intro, a little background to those who may not know you.
Yeah, hello Europe from Berlin. Very happy here. Good to see their face here as always as a constant. My name is Tilo Bohr. I do two things. One, running with Piabo PR, Europe's largest technology PR firm. We represent a lot of great high growth tech firms and investors all around the world, helping them with telling their story with public relations, social media content, influencer relations. Companies like Stripe, GitHub, Silicon Valley, Shopify, in Canada, etc. So many great companies are the honored to represent. But I'm also, as an investor, active as a business analyst and doing direct investments. So in 15 venture capitalists all around the world, which is very exciting. So see what's going on in different territories in Japan, in Vietnam, in Singapore, in Hong Kong, also here in Europe, obviously in Germany, funds like Cavalry Ventures, for example, Cenovo is a software service focused fund at the West Coast with Unlock Ventures, which has a very clear focus on the areas in LA and Seattle, for example. So it's very exciting to be invested in so many funds and see what's going on and working with great tech founders all around the globe. And very happy to be here and talking about this very important topic.
Absolutely. And just for today's topic and relevancy, so Thilo actually was one of my first guests here on VCTV. And so he and I have been conversing around these types of topics since early May or June. And so there's a lot that has happened since then. So Thilo, we're gonna take a little time warp back in time to see how things have progressed with you and those that you work with. And last but not least, Luis. Pleasure to have you back.
I came here last, Lyle. Kyle, look, I called you Lyle, Kyle. Look, we've been doing these shows and it's been awesome. You've been a great host. Let me give you a little background. You know it already. I've been involved in finance for over a quarter century. And I'm a managing partner with FGA Partners. We're involved in technology. That's our focus: artificial intelligence, collaboration platforms, blockchain technology, real blockchain, not, people mistake it for other things, but, how to incorporate that for security reasons. Today's topic is really interesting. The work at work and work at home and remote work and all this other stuff. This is a new normal. This is our new reality. And we're going to, I appreciate the panel and I appreciate the ability to get involved in this because I think this is an important topic and people need to learn more about it. Entrepreneurs, as we are entrepreneurs at heart, entrepreneurs need to hear from you guys so that they can learn and hopefully they'll go and create something magical. that can change the world. And that's my intro.
I love it's a great intro. That's a great ending intro. Look at that. Rounded out panel right here, ladies and gentlemen. This is the core you want to hear from today. And as I talked about, today's topics are around work and remote tech. Really, what is happening as technology has been applied in the workplace, right? How is it working? How is it not working? And with that, I would love to hear the current state from each of you, what you see as the current activities or the current view around technology in the workplace. We hear the good, we hear the bad, and we hear the really, really ugly of those situations. We talked a little bit pre-show of some of the trials and errors we've all experienced, but would love to hear from each of you your current state or view on the industry. And Brett, we'll start with you and we'll come around.
Yeah, I won't go too deep into it. I think, well, I mean, I think there's kind of just a couple different layers to it. There's these players, the Zooms and these different, products and Asanas and all these other, kind of things that we've used, and they're all very fragmented. Where I kind of see where it currently is there's a lot of existing tools out there. They're very fragmented. They don't all work together. I think that's one of the big next problems we need to solve. And I think that, the current state is causing, a lot of people to run into the space. I haven't really seen anything amazing, but I'm hoping that being on a panel like this and talking to other people that, we'll start to see ideas that are more next level. I think that, people talk about the future of work, but we're definitely really in the present of work. And I don't know that we're really thinking super innovative about what are the next steps.
And why do you think that is? What do you think's holding us back?
I don't know. I think I don't know. We've all just been working hard. Like, I mean, I think a lot of our businesses, if they're similar to mine, right, they've all been kind of bundled together with a series of products out there. We were just, work and life has kind of been the same for, maybe, I mean, not centuries, but it feels like centuries, at least last 20 or 30 years. I mean, it's kind of slowly evolved. And suddenly something like this really makes us have to rethink, like completely rethink work. In the last couple of years, I've kind of just put out comments about, hey, AI is coming, the workforce needs to change, and no one really cared because there was no catalyst, there was no pain point. I think we were all just getting along well with the existing solutions. We all did our 9 to 5, we went into work, we complained about it. We wanted to work at home more, we wanted to have more work-life balance. And there was a lack of trust on employers. No one, I mean, it was just kind of slowly emerging. And something like this, I feel like, is really just pulled like the emergency brake as we were going down the road about 90 miles per hour, right? And said, okay. And I think there's overcorrections, and there's, there's a lot of people that are in the camp that will never go back into the office. And there's people that, and I think that we will go back to the office, and it'll be kind of a hybrid, right? So I think we're just figuring out a lot of stuff, and it doesn't seem like, as society, that we're very proactive, right? It's like, like a lot of, I don't think there was like really a lot of, emphasis on this area until now. Now suddenly it's like, okay, we have to redesign this, right? And we're kind of, we're a little bit late to the game, right? So.
Yeah, I think you're right on the catalyst factor. I mean, that's part of the obvious, right? I think that's a good thing to call out, because before all these tools, and the reason I say it's obvious is before all these tools were very related to product or project management and collaboration, right? And then all of a sudden now they are focused around managing your entire team in a full distributed fashion. And it kind of changed the angle of maybe what the vision was originally for those products. Now we're starting to see and test those at their absolute limits. So I think you're perfectly spot on. Thank you, Brett. Alex, go ahead. Did you have something else to add? I apologize.
Yeah, we'll throw one last thing in there. It's not
Please.
all technology, right? So there's a change in the culture of like how we're doing business and work. And I think people like entrepreneurs are thinking about entering this space needs to not just think about, hey, can I build a better widget? But it's like, how do I incorporate something that's more holistic to building team and running, successful, Alex, I'll hand it over to him here next. We're kind of talking about prior to this, what's it like to, onboard new people? It's one thing if you have an existing team that already works, but what's it like to try to build a team that's, distributed, decentralized, and how do you build culture, right? And those are the things that kind of fall generally outside of technology, but not necessarily have to.
Absolutely. I mean, from culture to mindset, I mean, there's so much else from a human dynamic that goes into that process. Alex, Brett's already teed it up, so I'll come to you next.
I'm going a totally different direction, guys. I'm long sweatpant technology. It's deep, deep, deep. No, so we're it's super interesting what's happened, and I think my favorite quote is one of the leaders of one of the major Canadian banks here said off the records, their 10-year digital transformation plan just got collapsed into 3 weeks. This was sort of early COVID days when everybody just needed to react and figure it out as we go. And I think we're now 6 months or so, and it's essentially the emergency period is over, and everybody's learned an absolute shit ton of lessons. And several of these things don't work on an ongoing basis. Team collaboration, hiring, promotion, those are all things that have been challenges that have stopped us from going this full remote model for a long time. And so it's really interesting to see as we start to potentially emerge back to somewhat of a new normal, what lessons will be learned. I always think about it as sort of a 6-month proof of concept of what you would be doing in 10 years from now. And then, okay, proof of concept is over. What lessons can we learn that will actually create the sustainable, next generation future of work, this hybrid model that keeps being brought up. And there's sort of two thrusts that I really think about. One is this idea of serendipity or microness or unitization of connection, where we have these Zoom calls where it is scheduled for 1 hour and we work independently until we all connect at the same time, and then we stop and we go back to what we're doing before, which is just not how an office operates. We're talking, we're connecting with people, we're overhearing conversations. And so there's a whole suite of technology that's around this sort of unitization of connection and how we can simulate that still in a virtual world. We could talk specifics about some of those platforms as we go on. The other one where I'm both really encouraged and really terrified is we're creating data, terabytes of data every second now because we are entirely virtual. So, and most of the time we're doing nothing with it independently. Platforms are doing tons with it. And then again, that's a whole nother thing we can talk about. But all of the stuff that we suck at in face-to-face, bias detection, is like understanding how people think, a lot of this team building stuff, or even ergonomics, there's a lot of value that we could go over and above what we used to be able to do, even in sort of a physical setting, by leveraging the data that we're creating in a video form. Video is highly analyzable, but the more we actually add logic and technology to analyze that video, the more, if we're not reorienting that tech to be working for us as users, the more power we're placing in the hands of our platforms, which is already a absolute ton. So there's huge opportunities, but I think there's huge risks that we're not really focusing on right now, especially in startup world where we don't want to pay for the enterprise style of connective technology. We use whatever's free. We use Google Meets, we use Zoom, all these techs are great, but they're all the technology that we get for free, and we're just sacrificing our data and really not catalyzing a lot of that value for ourselves. So a whole bunch of stuff we can dig into on that.
Yeah, and I mean, as we do, I mean, with that data, what do we even do with it, right? We've collected all this data, but now what's next, right? How does it get leveraged for us? How does it get personalized? How does it get used to benefit us back, and not just the platforms? Because one of the issues that we do have is we're generating all this data, it's going back to the platform, but are we getting anything in return? And in most cases, we're not. And optimization is actually decreasing in most cases, not increasing, which I know you want to talk about it. So I'll just leave you at that. I know you're jumping in just 1 second,
Okay.
1 second. Sergey, to you, current state, how are you seeing things today?
Well, I'll take a bit different angle than Brett and Alex. I'll tell about a bit about the startups that proposing their solutions right now. And I actually agree with Brett that there is a good point that there is a lack of something new being proposed. So, for example, what we've seen at the startup scene, there is a lot of things happening like, okay, we'll do a Spotify for Malaysian market. So there are niche solutions that just copy what's hot right now. but the thing is that we believe that people right now, they're also a bit tired of excessive amounts of work tech out there, and there are really great examples out there. But the thing is, how many solutions does companies really need? I mean, if there is we have Zoom, okay, we have Google Meet, how many others we do really need? So that's the same thing with WorkTech and RemoteTech. You cannot make zillion of solutions and expecting that a lot of companies will be using them unless, okay, you have a pipeline and selling them to corporates and etc. But then you will still stuck going outside of the country. So I also agree actually with Alex that some expectations did not work that we probably expected them to be, because well, a lot of people said that okay, right now the offline working will be doomed, but we still see that people need people. Although we see that there are some solutions arise, especially for example in Singapore, they're very interested in locker solutions. Where people lock their stuff okay, so this is how you can give something to someone without involving physical communication, right? You use a locker and then this person uses a locker to take the things out. So this was very favorable by Singapore government. This goes in line with their strategy. But we also see that there are a lot of digital events and attempts, for example, in Fortnite, very popular, most popular game right now. There will be a digital event hosting, real artists. They are right now building a real scene for these artists to perform, and they will be inside the game. So yes, this increases the popularity of the digital events because artists they are hungry for performance, obviously. But we also do understand that people wait for offline events to come back. So what we as VCs expect right now is probably, yes, people looking a bit further. Yes, we have these, we all know that remote tech is important. We all know that these solutions for online collaborations are important, but this is not something new. We need to look, okay, why your product will be in high demand in 3 years time, something like that.
That's a very good point. I think it kind of goes with a little bit of what Brett was saying. And Thilo, I'm going to come right to you here next. And Brett was talking about that there will be people who go back into the office. Like we're not all going to work from home forever, kind of situation. And I think you're calling it out right, Sergey. People are trying to find that middle ground right now and leaning towards wanting to get certain things. But there's also another side of it. So you're kind of sitting in the middle to Alex's point as well. We also are living our lives more digital than ever. Which is kind of exciting, but will that continue and how it will continue, whether it's fractionized or fully, right? So the Fortnites of the world, will we be watching concerts going forward, 100%, 50%, 10%, 1% of the time in something like Fortnite, Decentraland, and others as well? It's TBD. So we'll hold on that. We'll come back. Thilo, to you.
I mean, what I observe here, and it's interesting that we have our client portfolio all around the world, that US companies are often very, very strict. I think it's also maybe for legal reasons, because they don't want that there's any damage created. So that, for example, at companies that locked all the doors at this chip, so even people who wanted to come in and just grab something, etc., that was completely out. I didn't experience this here in Europe. So it's really extreme how different companies handle this situation. I see here in Europe companies that really move into a hub model. So where you see on one hand, of course, people are working from home, and they're also realizing, especially more traditional companies who never did home office before, they were obviously forced to do it, and now, of course, desperately looking for solutions and apps and technologies and implementing intranets and new video conferencing solution, new hardware, things like that, equipping people with laptops as long as they only had stationary computers. So it's a lot of very interesting to see, and I hear from a lot of clients who are offering these kind of solutions that they shrink in their sales cycles from 6 months to sometimes 6 days, right? Where they say, okay, we have to make a decision now, we need it now, and that's obviously for these companies, tech companies, very, very helpful. In general, I feel, of course, there are a lot of tasks and jobs that you can do remotely, but in the end of the day, I think Alex said it very nicely, these kind of water cooler talks, right? When you just meet someone at the floor, just have a little chit-chat. There are a lot of things that I experience when I talk to my employees here in the office, that you say, I wouldn't have set up an actual meeting for that, right? But it was actually super valuable to have these insights, to have this conversation. And the one big problem, I think, with Zoom and all these technologies is mainly you can talk to each other and you can see each other, but there's zero energy, right? So this kind of energy and what people call karma, or this aura, what people have when they enter a room, especially when it comes to hiring or client meetings, things like that, right? This is something that is super, super valuable. And that's also the reason why a lot of people feel stressed from heading from one Zoom call to another, because maybe they are at home, they don't have to travel and run around from conference, but they don't, it sucks energy and doesn't give you energy, right? This is such from a psychological standpoint the case. And I think that's why I personally think this kind of hybrid model is where the future will go. Even companies like when you see for example, there are several examples, I think, companies with hundreds and hundreds of people who are completely remote, still they have then WeWorks in certain areas, or they have several times a year, everyone comes together and see each other. There is not a single company on this planet that is completely and fully remote. There are always times where people meet physically, because at least the people who are then in one area, for example, or there are 2 or 3 events per year where everyone is then flying in at one place. And it's, I think, the interesting that I think without the hybrid model, it will definitely affect the economy and will be not bringing companies forward. But on the other hand, again, when I look at the companies like Evernote, for example, or Freshworks, or also education companies, I think there's a lot of learning and a lot of implementation where people feel a lot of areas where you felt you had to fly in a trainer and pay them a hotel and train and etc. Obviously, there are a lot of programs, educational and coaching platforms where you feel, hey, I can do this also virtual, right? And tapping into expert opinions, helping people really to educate themselves about certain topics. I think in these last couple of months, we all have learned that a lot of meetings and a lot of physical touch points that we've done in the past is not necessary anymore, but we learned also even more what about the meetings and personal interaction that we had, how important they are for the future. So I think there's really a very, very fine line, and I think there's a lot to do also with obviously company culture too, but also here I think technology definitely can help, and we see with a lot of especially B2B tech companies that really the numbers skyrocketing, and I know a lot of investors who did deals remotely, including me, and we all learn also how to build trust in a virtual world, not only on betting sites.
Yeah, I think you're spot on about that thin line. It's also person to person, right? So you're right. There's many that have been in that remote or distant type workplace environment, right? Working at the WeWorks or the co-working spaces or the Starbucks of the world, and still wanting to come into the office, right? Even no matter how distributed your team is, you still yearn for that opportunity to connect with them and see each other in person, whether it's once, twice, or however many times a year. So I think you're spot on. But others, need that interaction, need that energy every single day, and it's how their business actually is energized as well. And Brett, hello to your special guest. With that, Luis, to you, want to continue the conversation. What are you seeing as a current state?
Well, here we go. Everyone made a good point. 2020 has been a reactionary year. you had technology that reacted to the situation. There wasn't a lot of proactive things that went on, and now we're at that interesting point where there has to be some type of balance. Okay, we're human. We need that human interaction. That's what motivates us. That's what inspires us. That's what gets us fired up to go and think about what to do next. Okay, Sergey made a good point as far as the companies that are going to be here in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. What are you going to do? What are you going to do that's going to change the world? What are you going to do that's going to add value to society? What are you going to do that's going to help companies to continue to grow and everything else? So all this stuff needs to come into play. Okay, that balance, that work, that remote working and working from the office, it's there's going to be some type of balance. Companies are going to want people to come into the office. You need that human action interaction, because if not, you're going to wind up becoming socially awkward. And we spoke about this a few times, and you become so socially awkward, you don't know how to deal with people in real life. You're going to have kids going outside not knowing, should I say hello? What do I do? What do I do? And that's what's going to wind up happening. So the companies that are coming forward, the entrepreneurs that are coming forward, they're developing integrated systems that are going to help across, from the work life to the remote work life to everything, and having those type of platforms. These are the ones that are going to be able to they'll be there in the next 3, 5, 10 years. They'll continue to evolve, and again, Tilo made some good points. So Alex made some good points, so did Brett. I think that at the end of the day, when everything comes together, okay, the ones that are not thinking one dimensional, the ones that are thinking that multi-pronged, they're looking at the whole situation for where we're going to be again in the next 3, 5, 10 years. You have to look out that way, because if you don't, you're going to wind up, something's going to wind up getting lost, and you're going to have a platform or a company that's going to go gone because it wasn't ready for that next thing. Okay, even with what we're on, is it ready for the next thing? It's who knows. Who knows? But I think that the innovation has to keep coming. I don't agree with the fact that you can't go and improve something that's out there. If you make it, if there's connectivity, if there's something that's integrated in something else, and you create a platform or a system that integrates into other things, it could be very interesting. I don't want to take up too much time. I just wanted to touch on that, because I think it's important, because being socially awkward is the worst thing. It's like being a wallflower at a party. It doesn't work. You're not going to pick up any girls, are you? So, and I'm going to pass over to you, Kyle.
I see us all laughing. Brett, I see you, I think, reaching for the unmute button over there. So I'll turn it to you here in just a second. But you're absolutely right. And that innovation, we have to continue to evolve. And, Brett started us out, and I'm going to come back to him. I mean, we have these tools, again, that were very focused around collaboration and product or project management. Were not necessarily built and used at the time for full team and company management. They've had to take a step and have been adjusted for it. And Alex will come back to us around the data and how those have improved or not yet, but they have to evolve. And we're already starting to see pieces of what that evolution may be. So Brett, to you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a question there, but so my unintended prop here, right? So I think we're all kind of adjusting to the different, real life challenges. I mean, I think the core of like what we're talking about from a VC standpoint is what technology can be built. But when we talk about like Lewis, like there's, hitting on the social interaction, I think we're all kind of thinking, like, I think it has to come from people thinking about the psychology of like what humans need. And like, those are going to be the killer products, right? I don't know what they're going to look like yet. But if you just are just thinking about, hey, how do I, patch together remote teams and project management, and not holistically think about, the human aspect, I think it's going to be a miss. And they're going to be very Me Too products that really, have, they're not going to be the blockbusters.
Can I jump in on that, Kyle?
I was coming to you next. So yes, go ahead.
No, I think I love the fact that this kind of came up, this thread of what humans need. Because in our current digital interactions, it's not focused at all on what humans need. It's focused on what humans can be influenced to do to earn money for the platform that they're interacting with. And that's really sort of the key digital infrastructure that we exist and work with today. We have these wonderful, immersive, lovely, lizard brain experiences that we see and go through, and they're perfect. They get us everything that we want immediately. They give us our short-term dopamine hits. We can like things and get likes and all of the things that our Paleolithic ancestors love to do in digital form on steroids. But none of them are actually good for us as humans, as modern humans. And so this is one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is what's the suite of technology that can reverse that flow and take the algorithmic based AI platforms that are existing today for quite frankly pretty silly reasons to get us to do more things that make commercial sense for the platforms to, okay, well, can my data accrue into a vehicle that I own? These behavior, realistically, they are behavior manipulation algorithms. Can I reorient them instead of getting me to do something that's commercially beneficial for somebody else? Can I get it so that I cruise my way through Facebook and I end up being jacked and with a great relationship with my dad? Like, can we do it so that we end up being kind of manipulated into taking these positive actions, or shut down your computer and go outside and actually interact with people in real life? And we haven't even really tried. That's kind of the most shocking part, is that there is barely any technology that's operating in this world right now. So I mean, we're invested in a couple platforms, not to name drop, but that are working on that kind of that vault of your data that's a blocker between where you go and experience the digital world and aggregates data to you first. But then that personal cognitive computing side, personalized AI, meta me, whatever you want to call it, that's really kind of where I get really fired up about this type of technology. And especially now that we're in this entirely virtual world, it's so much more important that that type of technology advances. But is also, we have so much more data to feed it. We just need the right paradigm into which to feed that data. And we do not have it today, and it's very scary.
When do you think we will have such a thing? I mean, it's a big question, and not holding you to it, but when do you think that's going to come? And the reason I ask, we've been talking about predictive maintenance, we've been talking about personalized data for years, and it's still not here. I mean, even from my background, as we've spoken one-on-one and also here on VCTV, is my background in wearables and IoT. I mean, we've been talking about leveraging that data for actionable insights, and here we are on a day when Apple should be announcing their 6th version of the Apple Watch, and we still don't have those types of capabilities. So in your opinion, when do you think those types of things will be here?
Yeah, and so I agree with you. I don't think we're imminent there right now. And I think it's also because we have this extractive data paradigm right now, which gives you mediocre data by design or by default, because you're sort of keeping people out of the nuts and bolts of the plumbing of what's actually happening behind the scenes with those systems. You're by definition limiting them from saying, hey, no, that's wrong. No, this is what I actually want. Okay, that's what I want there. So you're always going to have this dirty or mediocre data that's flowing into these systems that are trying to give you personalized AI or personalized recommendations. You're also always going to have siloization in those platforms because it's illegal for them to share data with each other because you're being excluded from it. It's part of the regulatory environment that we have that is sort of this half measure to ensure our own privacy. So it's only when we can actually start with the data accruing to us first and creating solutions around this 360-degree data that we're involved in the actual supply chain and infrastructure of, and not from a technology perspective, because we're not all data scientists, we're not all programmers. We need the consumer-facing applications that just make it as easy as Google is to create these 360-degree data vaults and then build solutions on top of them. And the way we're going to actually get adoption for that is because the recommendations are better, because we're getting paid for it, because it's a better solution, and it needs to be an objectively better solution to a grandma in order for people to actually start adopting this new style of technology. But specifically to your point, the plumbing's being built right now. So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can reorient your flow of data into not necessarily a functional vehicle that you control, but at least away from the existing sources. You can pull your data back from existing sources that have it. There's a whole bunch of ways that we can start mapping this stitchwork of our data together, which is step one towards creating this better version of the future. And there's a couple cool technologies. I won't go through the laundry list right now, but happy to talk in all sorts of depth about that stuff as well.
Well, and speaking of technology, Lewis, I want to come to you for just a second. I mean, you focus so heavily on artificial intelligence and blockchain as an infrastructure. How does that play a role into what we're talking about and what Alex mentioned as well?
It plays every role. Artificial intelligence, this is, the future of everything. And the incorporation of blockchain for security reasons, we talk about security a lot, privacy, security. This is very important. Alex, he was talking about, how you can leverage, and you were talking about, Kyle, how you can leverage your own personal data. The problem is in artificial intelligence, you have machine learning. Machines, they're, for all intents and purposes, they're dumb. You have to feed them data. Without the big data, they can't learn, they can't evolve. So how do you accomplish that? So until the time comes that someone creates something where you can individualize that data and utilize that for the individual, and they can have their own preferences, their own personality involved, their own everything. When that comes, something like that can be epic. But what winds up happening, the Googles, the Facebooks, all these companies, they wind up falling short because they need that data. They give you the free stuff. Here goes the candy, kid. Come play in the yard. This is what they're doing. You go and you utilize it because it's free, whether it be Facebook, Google, Zoom, whatever. I mean, you're talking about your data going to someone else so they can utilize it. So, artificial intelligence is going to play a really important role in the future, and the companies that step forward and do something different. They're proactive. They're not reactionary. They're not reacting to a scenario. They're looking at tomorrow, what could be. And I do urge entrepreneurs, even you guys on the panel, I don't know if you've seen it, but years ago, I was in New York with Corning, and we were talking about their optic fiber. I call it fiber optic. They call it optic fiber. We were talking about that, and they were sharing their house of glass, the house of the future. If you have an opportunity, look on YouTube, look at it, because you're talking about the connectivity from home to car to office to school to everything. And this is the dream. This is the vision. But you have everything is so fragmented, Brett said it, fragmented, that until that comes together, and AI is going to play a big part of that, until it comes together, it's going to be very difficult to have that cohesive situation for everyone to function at home, work, this, that, and it's just going to be very interesting. But AI is going to play a big role.
Funny enough, a little insight. That house of the future, that glass house built by Corning, was actually a huge inspiration for me getting into the Internet of Things as well. So congratulations to you for doing that, sir. With that, guys, I want to come to you each for opportunities. So Brett, Thilo, Sergey, where are you seeing opportunities in this space that are missing, that can be executed on either from a technology or otherwise? That companies can start acting on and investors should be paying attention to. So Brett, we'll start with you. Thilo, and then Sergey, we're going to come to you.
Yeah, I'll do one just that's probably not on the top of most people's mind, but it's just the regulatory space. So we're working with a company called Big Controls that was primarily focused on enterprise. But what people don't realize is when you start going to remote workers, like at least in the United States, that you have to basically pay. You have to make sure you're filing all your taxes, setting up businesses, licenses in all those states. People that are solving those kind of little problems are probably not at the top of most people's minds. But I don't think people really recognize like this. Like there's all these new challenges that'll come with this. So the idea of this, hey, we'll all work from home and it'll all be great, actually creates a lot of problems for businesses that are entering into that space that they probably haven't thought about.
Thilo, to you. And absolutely, Brett, absolutely. Thilo, to you.
So when I look at my stocks in China, for example, where the pandemic obviously started, you see that everything goes up that really benefits people when they're spending more time at home. That means entertainment services, streaming, delivery services, education, like language learning, for example. That are things like home services, home supply, but also furniture, like the entire trend of cocooning, for example. We look here also in Germany, the numbers of all these Home 24 and all these platforms where you can buy a new sofa or new lighting, etc. The stocks skyrocketing, and I think we have to look a bit broader, right? Not just remote work, okay, that's Zoom and that's some video conferencing, some communication tools. I think what it really makes with mobility, with our cities like smart city topics, education, delivery, entertainment, spaces like VR, things like that, right? I mean, there are new platforms where you can have entire conferences, where you see the entire human body in VR with your glasses, things like that. I think it's very important as an investor. You see the entire impact and not just be short-sighted and say, okay, now people need a new video conference, things like that. Has implications for B2B, but also heavily in the B2C market.
Absolutely. Sergey, to you.
Thank you, Kyle. Well, I think that startups need to distinguish between short-term and long-term solutions. So, for example, we currently have several companies that we help. Most notably, we have, for example, a Norwegian company called Saver. They grew from, small solution that is helping people that been stranded offshore with a yacht and they need emergency services. So it's like online application, but they grew to bigger one, also, providing emergency services platform. Okay, we believe that could be, a huge demand in current times for people to be able to ask for any, emergency help, because there have been, a spike of emergency situations during the last 6 months. For example, another is a company called RiskWolf from Switzerland, and they are, Silicon Valley Ignited as well. It's an InsurTech, because we still believe that InsurTech, there is a lot of things that can be developed there, and we all know how insurance industry been, actually, shaped by whole situation. So they definitely need the solutions because they are not very flexible in terms of changing. I think fintech goes faster than InsurTech. So for fintech, it required, all these. I mean, the trends started, I think, 5 years ago or more for fintech, but for InsurTech, it was, last year and this year that was a wake-up call. So what I mean about short-term, long-term solutions, if they're just building an MVP right now, they need to think what problems they will be solving that will stay in 2 years' time. Because if they're just solving the current problems, let's say, oh, there is, a low demand in, hotel bookings, let's solve this problem. Are you sure that this problem will still be the same in 1 year time? Especially because it's, location dependent and all that. For example, airlines go for their own solutions. I mean, I was just amazed to hear that they currently offering some airlines in Taiwan, Japan, Bahrain, and now Singapore probably, they offer sightseeing flights. So basically you fly from your airport, you go, in circle around 1 hour and go back. So you have, full service on board. It's like a stay, they call it staycation. So you basically go nowhere. So you just going through the process of, checking in business lounge, sitting there inside the airplane, looking down at the city and going back. And it's a beautiful solution, I think. But the thing is, it's short-term solution. So startups just hear these news and say, okay, let's do something. Let's bring this startup solution to airlines. They might be late for the party when they will be up for their funding, when their MVP will be ready in half a year or even 1 year time, if we'll be realistic. And for example, third company we work with right now is Empress. They're Series A ready. They're way more solid right now. So they are Singaporean based, and it's about influencers and bringing the youth more actively into streaming, producing content, because it has been founded by ex-Twitch executives. So it's about bringing more attention to esports, because esports is also a source of income for the people that can do their can pursue the profession of esport, competitorship in esports. So I think, in a nutshell, if we speak about what we expect right now, we expect companies, startups, to think about the problems that we'll be solving in 1-2 years' time, not focusing on the exact moment.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Everyone's shaking their heads as well. And gentlemen, we are here at the lightning round, so we are coming up to close. I want to come to each of you for your closing thoughts and any advice in addition to what Sergey just mentioned for those that are looking to invest and or build in this space. Then, of course, where can everyone find you online? So Thilo, I'm going to come and start with you first. Any closing thoughts, piece of advice for those looking to build and invest in this space? And then, of course, where can they find you online to continue the conversation?
Absolutely. And as you know, I love pitches also via social media, so feel free. No, I mean, LinkedIn, I think it's always great to stay in touch. You find it via my name, Thilo Bono, but also if you prefer Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever, feel free to just connect, and you find me on all these platforms just typing in my name. And when it comes to investment, I think it's very important to really look at also at the local culture. I think when it comes to remote work and these kind of things, it's not so easy just copy and paste models that maybe worked in China or in the US, because there are different regulatories, there are different kind of cultural habits, etc. So I think it's very important to pay attention what is really the current state in each market. And I think it's a good idea also here to evaluate the concrete products and ideas really with the actual target group, and not just make investments based on a thesis or things like that, but really actually talking to the HR managers and companies, talking to the people who are responsible about making these kind of decisions, and really think about also how do you reach them, right? Because in times of a pandemic, there's no development really happen, can't connect personally. So you have to think, how can I also make my brand visible just digitally, right? Maybe more focusing in on LinkedIn, or do more white paper, case studies, webinars, it's like this, right? So this kind of situation has also an impact on how you do your marketing, your communication, your sales strategy. And I think it's a bit more complex, and we see also a big shift from all people who did their connections and their business development and their investments on events and meeting people and connecting with them. Right now it's about digital visibility, right? And we should do more podcasts or things like that, right? So there is definitely a shift, and if everyone has questions or want to reach out, find me on LinkedIn or all the other social channels. I'm always happy to talk.
Absolutely agree. And we love webinars and Zoom videos and podcasts like we have here on VCTV, to Thilo's point. We absolutely love them. But great points all around. Louis, to you. Closing thoughts, any advice, and then where can everyone find you online?
Closing thought. Yeah, anyone can find me. You can go to fjpartners.com and you can go to megahoot.com and find out more about what we're doing. My view on things for entrepreneurs: be different. Don't piggyback on other ideas. Don't think that, okay, well, this one did it and I can go do it. Try to do something different, do something better, be fearless, go in there and don't be afraid to make a mistake, because you're going to fall down. You're going to hit your face. You're going to get up. You're going to keep running. Just keep getting up and keep making things happen. And when you're looking for investors, do yourself a favor. Don't just grab an investor because they have a couple of bucks. You have a lot of venture capitalists out there that have a couple of bucks that don't get their hands dirty. You got to get your hands dirty. If you have a partner, because that's a partnership, you're getting your hands dirty, you're helping them to grow. If you're just throwing money at them, what are you doing? Here goes a couple of bucks, kid, go create it and make me money. Okay, they need help. They need mentorship. They need the guidance. They need you to help them to bring it from point A to point Z or B or C, whatever the case may be. And if they're not willing to do that, then find yourself another investor. Okay, there are a lot of investors out there that are willing to get their hands dirty, that have the knowledge to help you to get to where you want to be. And for the investors out there, again, help these companies to grow, because you have a gem there, you just don't know it yet. You help them to grow, and then all of a sudden, boom, magic happens. Okay, but I don't want to take too much time. Lightning round. You can also find me on LinkedIn and connect. I'm always willing to talk to anybody, as Kyle knows.
Absolutely. Sergey, to you, any quick closing thoughts? Where can everyone find you? And then we'll finish up with
Okay.
Alex.
Yeah, you can learn more about our company and my Other partners, Morphosis.capital. You can find me on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, I'm not as Tyler. I'm not on Facebook or other platforms. I'm not very social, but it's not a problem for LinkedIn. Definitely. As for the closing thoughts, yeah, I totally agree about startups coming up with new solutions. The only thing I'd probably emphasize is, okay, with coming up with new solutions, I'd advise thinking about probably geography as well. So the thing is, we as VCs, we also represent the interests of our investors, right? So, and investors do like when, for example, innovations come from US or Germany or Switzerland or but sometimes, they expect from certain markets, they expect not groundbreaking technology, but they expect probably more well thought. It's not about copycats, but where they expect more well thought solutions that can be scaled. So if US company can afford itself to orient purely at US market or UK plus Australia, while, for example, Southeast Asia cannot afford, being locked up in just Malaysia or Indonesia or especially Singapore, because it's just 5 million people there in Singapore. So they all trying to ignite startups, trying to force them going outside. And if they need to go outside of their country, then their solution need to be both reliable and unique. So it's kind of a balance. So it's not trying to, please not trying to invent completely new thing, because as practice shows, most probably your solution is already developed in US by other guys only in UK. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Sergey. And apologies, gentlemen, we're coming to close. So Brett, just a few minutes, and Alex, just a few minutes after that as we go. So Brett, closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
Yep. Closing thoughts. I mean, just building on what Sergey was saying, I think you have to be looking 2-3 years out, what's still going to be relevant and what's going to be the future, not what's the present. And start with the human side of all of this. I think that's the piece that's probably missing. That's where like the big gem is going to come from, is someone who really nails the human psychology part of building, the workforce that's digital and distributed. So that's all I got to say on that. I know we're up on time here. I'm on LinkedIn, Brett Noyce, and then brnoyce@unventures.co.
Wonderful. Alex, close us out. Where can everyone find you? Quick advice, and then any closing thoughts?
Start with the human side. Completely agree with Brett, and build your organization with something other than maximizing for the bottom line. That is really where the whole paradigm is running into a wall today with the way we've built our digital infrastructure, because all organizations are absolutely optimized for the bottom line. There's a whole broader discussion that I'm having across a bunch of different channels right now with a lot of really, really interesting people to move that paradigm forward. Specifically, I think we're creating video at a speed and rate that we've never done before. Any technologies that are adding analytics to that video, whether it's sentiment analysis or even stuff like physical ergonomics analysis. Very cool company I was just talking with earlier today in Toronto called My Abilities that does full ergonomics assessments just based on video. Just we're doing things different, and things like that aren't necessarily going to go backwards, even if we do go back to sort of a more normal way of working in general. These are things that are pervasive trends: more video, more data, more interaction, more communication, that side. So there's really, really cool technologies there. But again, to echo Brett's point, things that reorient the paradigm back to a human-centric piece of worldview. You can find me on Twitter at AlexM_bicameral, on LinkedIn, bicameralventures.com, and I'm writing a collaborative Git book about all of this stuff called The Lizard and the Machine: Scaling Humanity in a Machine Speed World at lizardandmachine.com. So would love to check that out. And thanks everybody for tuning in. This has been awesome.
Wonderful. And again, thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts and insights today on the panel. We do appreciate it. To our audience, thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show. like today to the LA Token team, Maria and or myself. Thank you, Tilo. And if you do continue the conversation, as we encourage you to do so with each of our investors here today, make sure you do add context as well and where you met them. So here on VCTV or on social media as well. Thank you, Louis. With that, I am your host, Kyle Ellicott. We are going to be back here in just a short little bit after a quick break for another episode of VCTV, talking a little bit about what's to come in fashion, consumer products, and beauty. 3 very important trends when it comes to the future of consumer products. And with that, a big thank you to Maria and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible. I'm Kyle Ellicott, your host. You can find me everywhere on social media at Kyle Ellicott. Thank you, Brett. We'll be back here after a short break. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.